Hello everyone, hope everyone's doing good today. I'm pretty excited. I have two Stenocereus queretaroensis flowers that are going to bloom tonight, and I'm going to cross-pollinate both of these. And I'm able to cross-pollinate them because they come from two different mother plants. If they would have been from the same mother plant, I wouldn't be able to cross-pollinate them. But now I'm just going to have to wait for the night. That's when the flower completely opens up and it starts to release the pollen from the anthers. Now I'm just gonna have to wait, and I'm gonna show you guys how I pollinate my Stenocereus queretaroensis flowers. So I want to talk a little bit about the flower before the night hits. So the center part, that's the stigma. That's where you're gonna add the pollen. So right now the stigma is still closed. At night it will open up, and if it doesn't, you're gonna have to force it to open, and that's when you add the pollen. And then on the side, that's where the anthers. That's where the pollen comes from. So he's gonna have to wait for the anthers to release the pollen. So the night's finally here and these flowers are completely opened up. So I actually use this little vacuum to pick up the pollen, to collect the pollen. And I just started using this little vacuum like 2 years ago, and I really love it. It collects a lot of the pollen. And this is I really recommend you guys get one of these if you guys want to collect some of the Stenocereus pollen, because these Stenocereus queretaroensis, they tend to just give out a little bit of pollen. So with this little vacuum, you'll collect most of the pollen that it gives out. And then I like to collect the pollen at night. I really don't like to collect it like early in the morning, because I live close to the beach, and these flowers will have a little bit of water from the like early morning drizzle. And if you collect the pollen with the water, you'll end up just ruining all your pollen. So you want to make sure, I make sure I get it at night. And then these flowers actually give out some nectar as well, so you want to make sure you don't suck up the nectar. So right here I'm gonna grab some of the pollen. And then so the anthers already released the pollen, so I'm gonna suck around it, all of it. Now let's see how much pollen I collected. Look at all that pollen. I wouldn't be able to just grab all this pollen if I was just using a little brush to brush off the anthers. So this vacuum does a real good job. Now I'm gonna put all this pollen on a little container. So I only have one of these little vacuums, so I'm gonna have to clean this one off. And for me, I don't mind if my pollen gets like contaminated with different other pollen, because for me, I'm just trying to get the fruit. I know if you were trying to collect pollen and not contaminate with another pollen, you have to make sure you have like 2 different containers. I mean, there's some people that like sell the seeds, and they want to make sure they know what kind of seeds they're selling. But in my case, I really don't care for the pollen to get mixed up, because for me, I'm just trying to get the fruit and eat it. So right here, I'm gonna put some of the pollen, put it to the side. Now, even though if I may have a little bit of pollen from another flower, it doesn't really matter as long as most of it's from one. And I do collect this pollen, which I'm gonna freeze for later on. The thing about these flowers is that they only bloom at night, and then they just bloom for one night, and then the flowers just die out. So with these queretaroensis flowers, you'll have one blooming one night, and then like 2 days later you have another one blooming, and you only have one flower. So you want to collect this pollen, because if you don't, then the flower is just gonna die out. It's not gonna be able to give you any fruit. So right here I'm just gonna collect this. I'm just gonna put the lid on for right now. I do have a mark, I know which cactus it comes from. And then put this down, and now time to go get the other flower. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same process I did for the first flower. I'm gonna collect the pollen right here. Just have to be gentle with the flower. You don't want to damage the flower. I'm gonna collect the pollen from these anthers. As you guys can see, the stigma's already opened up already. So I'm gonna try to get as much pollen as I can. And then once I collect this pollen, I'm gonna put this one in a different little container so I won't mix them up. Okay, so I'm done getting the pollen. I actually got some good amount of pollen from just one flower. And I'm gonna put this one in a different little container if I want to mix up the pollen. And then as soon as I put the pollen in this little container, then I'm gonna cross-pollinate my flowers right now. Okay, so I'm gonna pollinate this first flower with the pollen from the second flower. And so I'm gonna put this pollen all over the stigma, but you kind of want to make sure that most of the pollen is inside the stigma. So right now I'm just gonna put it all around. You could use your, let me put this down. I like to use my finger to kind of keep it from moving. And then right here I'm trying to force it to go inside the little stigma. So right in the center it has a tiny little hole where you're trying to get as much pollen as you can. But then I will put pollen all around it. Like that. You kind of, I'm holding it. I'm being gentle with it. I don't want to break it. And I do have enough pollen, so I'll maybe put a little bit more. When I used to just collect the pollen with the brush, I only have a little bit of pollen, so I will only just put just a little bit of pollen on the stigma, and most of my flowers just fall off. But right now, because I had this little vacuum, I'm able to collect a lot more pollen, so I'm able to add a lot more to them. And that should be enough for this flower. Now let's go up to the next flower. So this is the second flower. I'm using the first flower's pollen. It's gonna do the same process I did to the first one, just adding the pollen to the stigma. Now this is the first time that this cactus gives me flowers. I have less than a year that I planted this cactus. This is actually from my cutting, so I don't know if it has any roots yet. Hopefully it does, but if it doesn't have any roots, sometimes the flower will fall down because the cactus doesn't have enough strength, because it still haven't given out the roots to get some of the nutrients. But hopefully it does, and I'm gonna be excited to see what color fruit that this cactus is gonna give me. So hopefully this flower is able to get. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Let me try to zoom in for you guys can see some of the pollen on the stigma. And there it is. So now that I'm done cross-pollinating my two flowers, I'm gonna freeze this pollen. And you could freeze it. I have done it. So I do recommend you guys freeze your pollen, especially for these Stenocereus queretaroensis that only bloom at night. So you want to make sure you have some extra pollen on hand, just in case you have a flower that blooms and you don't have no other flower that's blooming the same night. You have some extra pollen that you can just grab from your refrigerator. And let's see what happens. Hopefully it was a success. So here are the results of me cross-pollinating my Stenocereus queretaroensis. And this one I did lose a couple of flower buds. But then look at this one, all three of them. And they're still not fully ripe. But as you can see, the fruit on the bottom starting to get bigger. And you can see all the spines. And on this one, I lost a lot of them because a lot of flower buds, because these, for some reason, the flower didn't completely close at the end when it dried up. And I had some slugs at night that were getting into them, and it'll start eating like I guess the pollen. But yeah, the slugs were getting on top of the flower, and I think that's why I lost a couple of these flowers from this one. For example, this one, it actually closed off from the tip, and these stayed open, so the bugs were able to get in there and put all their slime on there. The same as this one, you see they the top of it stayed open, and the bug got in there. This one actually closed off. And then I'm gonna show you some more that I cross-pollinated. On this one, I pretty much cross-pollinated all the flower buds that I had. This one only had 2, and I was able to cross-pollinate both of them. This is a Stenocereus pernussus. I don't know what color is this. It's the first year that it's gonna give out fruit. And here I have another Stenocereus queretaroensis. This one only gave out 2, and I was able to cross-pollinate both of them. This is a Stenocereus aluminesis. Well, this is pretty much going to be it for this video. I was going to show you guys how this fruit looks when it completely ripes, but I'll make a second video for that. Right now, I just want to show you guys how I cross-pollinate some of my Stenocereus. And hopefully you guys like this video. If you guys have any questions, just please leave me a comment and I'll respond to it as soon as possible. And thank you for watching this video.